So the other day I reviewed the first Book of Dust that came out, one of Philip Pullman's newer books. So today we're going to review the second one, Volume 2. So this is the next one in the series, and the most recent one. And so yeah, I'll review this one in today's video. Before we get into the video, make sure to check over the Twitch page. I'll leave a link for that down in the description. Make sure to ring the bell to get notified when I next go live. So my general overview of this book. It does a great job of kind of recapturing that world that was built up, especially with the some of the characters that have been introduced. It continues that kind of more darker tones and more like adult themes that were set up in the book, the volume 1, and it does a good job of building on the world that's been created in the first trilogy by adding more locations, and it makes the story itself seem a bit more grounded in a way, because there's not as many like fantasy kind of elements. Obviously you got the demons and stuff, but it feels more like our own world and adds a varied culture and more of a greater understanding of the world in which they're like living in. It tackles some important issues in this one. However, my main issue with this is there's a time jump, because this book takes place 10 years after the end of the trilogy and 20 years after the end of the Volume 1 Book of Dust. So it's all in the future. And the problem with that is that some of the characters that set up, especially characters like Malcolm, who I really liked in the Volume 1 book, the Volume 1, now seems like a completely different character. Because that might be my own issues here, but I feel like a time jump, especially the character kind of takes a backseat for the beginning, because you've got Lyra who's back in this. So the character of Malcolm, I really liked in the first one, and now it's kind of just left in, he's basically a completely different character, and I don't really like that. And Lyra is difficult to like seeing she's now 10 years older, and it's very weird. But anyway, if we break this down to 5 chapters, we're going to start with one called Moonlight and Bloodshed. So this one reintroduces the characters that have been present in not just the Book of Dust Volume 1, but also the original trilogy. So for example, we start with Lyra and her demon. I feel this one does a great job of not, I want to say like belittling the reader by, it doesn't have some like big summaries about what happened or who these characters are. It understands that you've read the past ones. You wouldn't be reading this if you hadn't. And so it doesn't go into too much detail on Lyra, who she is, and basically it doesn't do like a big summary of, oh, here's what's happened in the previous books. Because I feel like sometimes things can do that, and it just puts me off, because I'm like, I want to get into the next book. I don't want to know, like, be retold things that I already knew. Some longer series can benefit from this, because you've got so many different things and you kind of need to be reminded of some stuff. But this, it's not a very long series, so it's not, I don't think it's a big issue. So the fact that they don't give you some like big rambling speech about what's happened is a good idea. And straight away it gets to the conflict and kind of the intrigue of the novel with a murder that Pantaleimon, I don't know how you say it. It's Greek. Pantaleimon? I don't know how you say it, but anyway, yes, Pan. We'll just use Pan. Pan sees this murder, and so that's straight away in the first chapter there's some kind of conflict, which I think is great. Get straight to the point. No rebuilding of characters, which yes is good. I feel like between this and what happens next should have been a bit more development of these characters and kind of talk about them, because I haven't seen this character for 10 years. Not me personally, but I've missed 10 years of their life, so I don't know what they've been doing. And for Malcolm it's been 20 years, and so I have no idea who the person is now. The next chapter we're going to talk about is Letters, because this one brings back Father Coram, who was completely underused in the first trilogy because him and the rest of the Egyptians were just completely cut off after the first book, returned at the end of the third one, but very minimal role. And so they're brought back and it does a really good job. However, it kills some characters off screen. And for Lyra to just hear, oh, this person's died, it kind of, like, I don't know, the way Lyra reacts is like, oh, okay, and then they move on with what's going on. It kind of, I'm like, you knew this person, they're dead, and you're just fine with it? I don't, it's annoying. I feel Lyra, after having 10 years, and you're like a bit off about the character because you're not sure if they're the person you were reading before, and then they're just not caring about some of these deaths. I feel like I said, I feel like it's different characters, and I don't like it. Okay, so the next chapter I'm going to talk about is called The Furnace Man. This one is a bit weird. Like I said earlier, the story itself seems very grounded. There's not as many fantasy kind of elements and things like that. It's more a journey for Lyra through this world, and it's just different. It's more like just a journey of Lyra's journey through Europe. There's not much thing because she's not got her demon. That's the only conflict, is the fact that she's a child without a demon, and so, well, not a child, she's an adult without a demon, and so it's a bit, people are like a bit scared of her. But other than that, everything else is very like grounded and kind of I don't know, more realistic and that kind of thing. And so with this very realism based narrative, it's very weird for this chapter to take place, which is a dude on fire and his demon is made of water. And so, and apparently there's a magician or something that has his demon in this place, and then when they meet they fuse and become steam, and the steam powers a machine that is very weird. The machine itself doesn't do anything, and basically what happens is the magician itself is like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do, here's how to do it. So the machine itself and the guy with the demon is all plays no part in it. It's just this magician guy knows something about what Lyra has to do, just gives her some information so she can continue. And I feel it's very very out of place for just to receive some information, which could have been done in a much better way. And it would have felt better if there was more moments where it leaned back into that fantasy genre by having different things appear. The whole thing is called The Secret Commonwealth, which talks about those kind of creatures that are present but can only be seen where the more you think about them, something like that. So it's weird. And so this chapter itself feels really out of place. So the next chapter we're going to talk about is called The Brotherhood of This Holy Purpose. This one shows Malcolm's development since the first volume, showing he's a more capable character, he's more adult, of course he's going to be because there's been a lot of time, but also the fact that he's now joined the Oakley Street, which is the organisation that's been doing research into and trying to combat the Magisterium and that kind of stuff. And like I said, it also shows his capability, which I think in this scene he tackles one of the people with the gun in this theatre, and he manages to basically kind of he makes a difference. He manages to escape. Apparently it all goes well after that. And it just provides a more intense moment in the book, which at this point has been feeling quite flat. Not much has happened, it's just Lyra going through places and nothing big has been happening. And so this moment kind of introduces a more intense scene that was needed in what this was becoming a slow book. The next chapter I'm going to talk about is called Norman and Barry. And I'm going to talk about this ending scenes. But this brings back the character of Alice, who was introduced in the beginning of this book and then kind of left, which was kind of annoying because she was one of the main characters in Volume 1 and now she's just been taking a complete backseat in this one. And it also shows the fall of the organisation Oakley Street. They're part of the government that they don't really talk about, and in this chapter they're gonna stop being funded and they're getting shut down, and so what they're trying to do is they basically go underground. The character of Alice is best in these scenes, and this chapter does a great job of reinstating the fact that she is one of the better characters. I loved her in the first book. She's not had so much of a presence in this one, and that's why I like this chapter, because it brought her back. She gets questioned about Lyra, doesn't give information, gets fired. She gets into a fight with all these people, but she ends up getting captured and taken away. We don't know where she's going. We will find out in the next one. But yeah, so this introduces that character of Alice, who I really like. Okay, so my final analysis of this book. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. It has some interesting characters and it combats some darker themes, as well as some bits and pieces in there that I'll let you guys read for yourself and gather your own opinion on that. But it feels a bit off because of this whole time jump. I don't know whether some characters feel they've not changed at all, and some characters feel they've changed way too much, and I now don't like them. Like Lyra, I'm not too keen on, because she feels just like, she's just a different a character than she was, and like I said, I don't really like her. It steers away from that more fantasy feel that was set up in like the first trilogy, and it's very grounded. Like I said, it's more Lyra traveling through Europe and over through to Asia, and only once or twice is there much, so that you've got the scenes in the Fen with Egyptians, where there's some mentions of these more fantasy creatures, as well as that weird scene with the furnace man. Don't know what's going on there. So the fact that there's only 2 of those scenes, really, it feels a bit off. Obviously you've got the demons and stuff, but other than that, it's a bit weird. And the book itself, it's a bit long with not a lot of stuff happening, so it kind of concerns me that the fact that the book was so long, I felt a bit of a chore reading the middle part, and I was getting a bit sluggish. So my score for this one is going to be a 75 out of 100. Don't forget, I stream over on Twitch. I'll leave a link for that down in the description. Go check that out. Ring the bell so you know when I next go live. We'll get some live streams up going soon. We're just setting this stuff up. If you'd like to speak to me or anyone else about the books or anything else, we've got the Discord channel, so I'll leave a link for that down there as well. And there will also be a link down there for you to buy the book. If you've got any comments or anything about what I should do next, any videos I should do, any books I should review, leave it down in the comment section down below. And below me will be a subscribe link to the channel, channel stuff. And then over there will be a video chosen by the YouTube algorithm, so you can go check that one out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!